Hey girlfriend, this is Jan James. Welcome to the Hope After Breast Cancer podcast, where women who have endured breast cancer learn to have fulfillment over frustration, clarity over confusion, and faith over fear. We tackle the issues that many of our sisters face after a breast cancer diagnosis, from brain fog to fear of recurrence, from menopause to sex after breast cancer. This is the place to learn how to have hope after breast cancer. So strap yourself in. Welcome to the Hope After Breast Cancer podcast. I recently asked my longtime professional counselor and life coach, Cinthia Hiett, if we could record our session and discuss why the enemy of our souls attempts to destroy women through a breast cancer diagnosis. If you're a woman of faith, I think you'll really enjoy our discussion and Cynthia's perspective about things like body image, why you need to have compassion for your body, why your body didn't betray you, and how God works all things together for good. Here's our discussion.
I think that more than anything, Satan wants to remove any type of hope, comfort, inspiration that we could ever have. And one of the best ways to do that is to attack women first and attack them in the area that gives the most nurturing. That people, up until we had baby bottles, a baby wouldn't make it if the mom didn't have breasts. And so, that was a great way for Satan to be able to just eradicate the planet one person at a time. And it obviously it didn't work. And so, it also causes women to lose some of their confidence in their own femininity and sexuality. And our bodies are very personal to us and very important to us. And no matter how hard we try to not get identity from our bodies, we do. And so our bodies tell the world a story about who we are. And if we don't like the story it's telling, then it's really disturbing, really upsetting. And so we feel like we have to rewrite the story and maybe people aren't going to believe it. I don't want to think I'm lying. It just makes us feel like we're having to be fake, and that's not helpful. And so, breast cancer is really insidious. And so we like to nurture, we like to comfort people. And so it steals this part of you, and lies to you that you somehow cannot comfort and nurture anymore. And so, if you think about people liking to lay on our chest, animals do, men do, little children do. It's just this wonderful place of comfort and peace, and it's just magical. And so it'd be easier if you took a woman's uterus away from her than her breasts, because if we don't have a uterus, we can adopt children, and we can, so it's a whole different level of ugly and evil.
Yeah, and as you helped me through my years of breast cancer, I mean, you so often talked about how the enemy was working in my life, and about the battle that was raging for my femininity, for my body image, for all of the things, and so many of the
way that you love people is so expansive. And so, people always walk away from you feeling uplifted, feeling inspired, feeling acceptable, feeling like they're okay. And so you had that when you had breasts, and then losing them, causes you to just, women will have a tendency to just do this, so we close in, even physically close in. And so that was so poignant for you, because that was part of the process of you saying, wait a minute, I do have something to offer. I can love somebody. I can hug somebody hard, and they will feel that love from me. I don't have to have breasts to necessarily do that. But the problem is, even though we don't have to have them to do that, we miss them.
Totally. I mean, you and I have had the conversation about Sexual arousal for me was 100% my breasts, and then they're gone. So that's an issue, right? Now, let me kind of throw this out there. Just working with the thousands of girls that I have, there are some that once they're diagnosed, this is just my observation, and I'm not a certified anything. So just my observation, but my sense is that they take on cancer as an identity.
Mm-hmm. Well, because and the reason that they do, why that's so natural, is that our bodies give us identity. That's why we do so much plastic surgery, Botox, tanning, exercising, bodybuilding, all those kinds of things, because we get so much identity out of this vessel that God placed us in. And so that was also part of the fall. If you remember the Eve, they were both naked, and she was so beautiful. Adam could probably barely look at her. And so, for her, she's the one that was the most susceptible to being preyed upon. See, Satan didn't prey on Adam, he preyed on her. Mm. And he just embellished even more of what she could have if she were to eat of the tree. And God was doing that to protect them. And she saw that as withholding. And so the enemy is, and where was Adam to protect her? Where did he go? He was watching her do it. And I always say to men, well, wouldn't you want to watch a naked woman eat an apple?
Sign me up.
So I can't be too mad at Adam.
Right. No. That's the nature of man, as they would say, right? Yeah, exactly. So, that's fine. Hey,
you just see that we, since the beginning of time, it's been a problem for us to get back to who we are.
Right. Okay. So there's the one issue about how we as women feel about ourselves once breasts have been mangled, amputated, whatever it is, pick your deal, whatever, all of us have had different levels of that. So there's one thing about our confidence and our sense of self-worth and our our abilities and all that kind of thing, and so much of the way that other people, including our mates, I would say, respond to us is based on how we're feeling about ourselves, right?
Well, so see, a really big important piece of this is to recognize that in our body, our soul is all through our body. It's not just in our heart. It's flowing through our blood. It's, all of that. And so what you want to think about is that for anyone that has had to have a breast removed in order to save their life, the healthiest thing that we can do is really have compassion on our body and recognize that our body laid its life down for us, that our body didn't want this to happen, but our body is hardwired for us to live until the day that we die. This is why people, many times they're supposed to die and they didn't die, because their bodies are working overtime to keep them alive. And so what we want to do is we want to say to our body, thank you for fighting so hard, and I'm so sorry that you had to lose that in order to save me, but you saved me. Thank you. And see, that makes it a noble process. It's rape, it's pillage, it's stealing, it's all of that. But see, we can then come back with saying, but we're still a woman. That can't ever be taken away. Even when we go to heaven, we're not going to be like, I don't know. I used to think, I don't know what I thought I would turn into when I got to heaven. Then I realized, oh, God said to me very clearly, Cinthia, you will be Cinthia forever. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure if I like that idea. I thought maybe when I went to heaven, I'd be different or something.
He made you just perfectly the way you are.
And so that helped me to recognize, well, I better get in tune with my body. I better be at peace, because this body is working really hard for me and it doesn't get to go to heaven. And it's still working hard for me. Every single day, no matter what I do to it, it still shows up.
I love that idea of you're still a woman. And it reminds me of I was watching an interview a few weeks ago, and the gentleman that was speaking said, in 100 years, when your bones are in a grave somewhere, if they were to take the DNA from your bones, you would be a woman.
That's right.
It's down to the cellular atom level, and we can't deny that. So the breasts are not what makes us a woman.
Exactly. Our breasts are a way to enjoy life. Our breasts are a way to nurture babies, but we don't even have to have breasts to nurture babies. And so it's just this part of our body, and our body understands itself. It knows what it is, and it misses that part because that part wasn't supposed to be taken away. So the body is mourning it just as much as we are. It's mourning it for a different reason in some ways. It's mourning it because you took apart a piece of me, and that was important to me, and you stole it from me. And so our bodies are adapting to having a part of it stolen from itself.
How does that manifest? How do we know that our body is reacting or mourning to that loss?
Well, because we want to disconnect from it.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so we want to like I used to say, I just want to unzip my body and get out, And so it's like that disconnect of, if you're not going to be who I need you to be, then I don't want to be around you. And so we will neglect it, ignore it, harm it, whatever, until we recognize this is not the suspect. This is not the criminal at all. This is the hero that survives. This is the part of me that worked way overtime, day and night, never sleeping. My blood kept flowing through my veins. It didn't take a rest, so that I could live. And it's like, it's tough. It doesn't mean that we should feel guilty because we wanted to die. That's a natural, that's mourning. Of course we feel that way. And so thankfully our body doesn't take it personally. It keeps working day and night in spite of it, right?
Right.
But what we have to do is be angry at at what deserves the anger, and it's not us.
Breast cancer is a thief.
That's right. And it's not us. We don't want to be mad at us. I can't be mad at me. All my body's ever done is in spite of everything I did to it. It still showed up for me and still continues. And so that's why if we're kind and sympathetic toward our own body, then we begin to be able better to love ourselves again and have compassion on ourselves. And say, wow, that's horrible. That's tragic. That should never happen to anybody. And so I can mourn that and be sad about that and be very kind about, wow, and you still show up every day in spite of that. A very important part of you was taken without your permission. That's why it's a thief. But it's also a murderer.
In what way?
Because its main attempt, why do you think we would remove the breasts? So that the rest of the body can live. See, that's why it's a murderer, because it goes to the breasts first. Because if you have to live without breasts, then you are going to feel compromised every day. And then it's going to go after your body. So if we don't remove the breasts, it's going after the body.
And the thief comes in the night
to kill, steal, and destroy.
That's correct. That is correct. That's
why it is so poignant and so painful. And I mean, it's difficult to explain to somebody the feelings that you have when you're missing a part that has been there. And see, we have the regret because we didn't love them the way we should have.
Yeah, and I think so many women I know, and I think I went through a season of this as well, thought my body betrayed me.
Absolutely.
And I think you helped me correct that.
And that's why I'm saying we need to mourn with our body what it went through while we were still living our life. It was going through a battle, a huge war, making sure that while it helped us do our daily life, it was fighting a battle at the same time. And so the body feels just as sad, if not more than we do, that it lost part of the battle, but it gained the entire reward. It's still alive. And our body wants us to be proud of it for that. Didn't stop. It kept working day and night, doing what it can do. It can't make new breasts. It doesn't have that kind of power. But it still made sure that we survived. Because regardless of the way we look, regardless of our appearance, regardless what happens to us, we are still valuable people because of our soul. And this is when God said, you are going to be Cinthia forever.
Right, right. I'm just thinking about, I know that I am blessed in this way because getting a breast cancer diagnosis brought me to the calling God had on my life. And so I always would say breast cancer happened for me, not to me. But I sure wish that I knew what to say to women to help them shift their thinking about breast cancer happened to them.
Because this is what I want you to consider, though. You know, when you say that breast cancer brought you to the calling of your life, I want you to not ever give the enemy that kind of glory. God brought you to the calling despite what the enemy did. He was not going to let you miss your calling. So your calling is always to encourage, to heal, to educate, to protect, to galvanize women in whatever shape they're in. It isn't just breast cancer. So it's really important that, because God never does anything evil. So he's always turning bad things into good things. So what he did for you is he said, oh, the enemy attempted to steal her life from me so that she couldn't do what I created her to do. And so he made sure that you lived in spite of what evil was doing.
Gotcha. So how does someone, you know, what I want to say is how do I help women get past breast cancer? How do we get to the other side of it instead of like being like paralyzed in it? It's, you know, that's what I see.
You have to go back to what, you know, Dr. Kubler-Ross found out with cancer victims. We have to do the grief and loss process. I wish there was another antidote, but that one was so God-given to her. That the grief and loss process helped many of those cancer patients actually live when everybody else in the family had died. And so that grief and loss process is super important because it has to be, and when I talk to people about acceptance, one of the greatest things God told me about acceptance was, acceptance does not necessarily mean agreement. And see, that helped me. I accept all kinds of things that I don't agree with at all. But I'm not going to let that lack of agreement get in the way of me not being able to live my life. So I can accept a whole lot of things. It doesn't mean I agree with it. And so that's an important piece, that I don't agree with how I got to my calling, but I agree with the calling.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know, I don't think I've told you this, but just in the last few months, God has brought 2 or maybe 3 experts in grief and loss to us. And so we're just starting to crack that open. So I really appreciate you saying that. And I hope that you'll come and visit us as well and speak about that, because it's
so poignant. I was amazed when I read the book about her, and just, it is so heaven sent, because it works on everything. I talk to clients, I say, you know, the grief and loss process works if your whole entire house burned down and everything in it. And it works if you just missed the light and and it's red and you have to sit at the light for 3 minutes. I still go through the grief and loss process of missing the light. And I accept it. And by the time I accept the fact that I missed the light, it turns green.
Right. So what are there are 5 steps, right? Is that right? Can you run through those?
Shock, denial, bargaining, anger, sadness, acceptance.
Wow. So yeah, for those that are not familiar with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's work, it is amazing. And I was just looking at that not too long ago because I was having some loss that I needed to deal with. And I was like, okay, where am I at? Oh yeah, I skipped that bargaining part. Because I think you have to go through the whole banana in order to really get there. So yeah, so let's plan on doing some work on that too. That would be awesome.
I think the grief and loss process would be so helpful because what it does is it calms the entire sympathetic nervous system down, because then you get to acceptance. So you don't have to fight something you can't win. You then have the energy to fight the things that you need to fight instead of fighting something you can't change.
Yeah. And I think so many women are exhausted because they're doing that.
Well, I think we all do. And we want to be, Sheena Warrior Princess, right?
Right. I like those bracelets, Wonder Woman bracelets, right?
Or how about Wonder Twins, right?
Yeah, right. That's awesome.
Or Arnold Schwarzenegger. Don't worry. He'll be back.
Right.
I'll be back, right?
You and I joke with people and say, Cinthia has been my counselor and then my life coach for, I think, 33 years. Don't judge. I always say it just like that because I'm like, don't judge. Not every week, and sometimes going for long stretches in between, but we've spent a lot of time together over the years. I said to somebody recently that we kind of grew up together because we're kind of similar age, right? So yeah. It's fun. It's fun to have you as a life coach now, because now we can be girlfriends as well, which is nice. We love that part. Yeah. So that's good.
That was a wonderful thing God gave me. It really was.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. You're so, I love the way that God wired your brain. It's magnificent. So yeah, thank you for everything.
I am so glad for you. So thank you.
Girlfriend, thank you so much for listening to our podcast. I hope you found some nuggets to encourage you and give you hope. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. You never want to miss an episode, and we'd love to know how we're doing, so please be sure to leave us a review. Until next time, this is Jan James encouraging you to remember there is hope after breast cancer. See you next time.